God. So coming off the heart, artery-wise, we have the arch of the aorta, which is, regrettably, not very easy to see. But sort of this guy right here. Looks like an arch that would be right here. And coming off of that, you have the brachiocephalic, the right brachiocephalic, and the left subclavian. So this is left subclavian, this is right brachiocephalic. And coming off of the right brachiocephalic, we have three arteries. The left common carotid, which is underneath the esophagus for some reason. This guy right here, left common carotid, right common carotid, and then underneath that we have the right subclavian, underneath this big old right brachiocephalic. Give me a moment. Where is the right subclavian? Give me a moment. This guy right here. Right subclavian, right here. Coming all the way down onto the arm. Okay? So coming off of the subclavians, we have the first one is the number 4, thyrocervical. So that would be this guy right here. Underneath there. Underneath this vein, which is this, the internal jugular vein, you're going to find the thyrocervical right there. Give me a second. And it comes down here. Okay? Let's see, number 3, transverse scapular. The transverse scapular artery, which is the next one, comes off of the thyrocervical right around here. Okay? Next, coming off of the subclavian, we also, so the area between here and here is subclavian, whereas after you get off of the thyrocervical, you get the axillary, which would be from about here to all the way down here.
Is it the thoracodorsal or the thyrocervical?
The thyrocervical comes off the subclavian first.
Oh, okay.
Okay. Let's move this guy aside and take a look at some of these arteries and veins down here. Now, we have something called VLT, ventral thoracic, long thoracic, and thoracodorsal, which always trip people up. So the way we remember this is that it always starts a little higher than you think. So this guy right here, right at the top, coming off right here for the vein, this one would be subscapular. The artery for subscapular is down here. So for the vein, right up here, at this junction up here, this is ventral thoracic. Coming right behind that, right here, hold on. Oh, I think this one might be missing one. Yeah, this one is missing. This one is missing long thoracic, so sorry about that. This one doesn't have long thoracic. But this one heading back towards the scapula, that one's thoracodorsal. So the way you tell that one is thoracodorsal is running this way, ventral thoracic and long thoracic are running this way.
Okay, but again, if we ask that, we take anyone has both plates. So the first one is ventral, second is thoracic, and non-thoracic, and the third one is thoracic.
Yeah. So unfortunately, this one doesn't have it. Look for one that does. I know there's one in here.
What's the order?
Ventral thoracic, long thoracic, and thoracodorsal. And remember, they start higher than you think. So everyone should have ventral thoracic. It's right here at the junction between subscapular and axillary. Okay? All right. So that's a lot of the arteries. Let's take a look at some of the veins. Let me take a quick look here. Number 8. Brachiocephalic. Superior vena cava. Okay. So up here, we have anterior facial and posterior facial veins. This one here is transverse jugular. And coming down this way, we have external jugular. External jugular coming off of it is thyrocervical. This one right here is internal jugular. Okay? Let's start from the heart now. You have the superior vena cava, the sternal, which is this guy right here, and then the left and right brachiocephalic right here. The brachiocephalic immediately turns into the subclavian from about here to about here. And then it becomes the axillary down here, where we of course have the ventral thoracic, the long thoracic, and the thoracodorsal down here. Now with the veins, subscapular comes first, whereas in the arteries, subscapular comes after thoracodorsal. So in the veins, ventral thoracic comes after subscapular. Does that make sense? So this one is subscapular right here. For the arteries, subscapular is all the way down here. Okay. That's a lot of the veins and arteries of the upper body. Let's talk about the veins and arteries of the lower body.
I was confused after the internal jugular. I thought there was a transverse scapular.
Yeah, I think I got that one. It's number.
I got the inferior thyroid, which I thought ran between the internal and external jugular. You didn't touch the transverse scapular.
I was under the impression that this guy right here was the transverse scapular.
Yeah, but you called that the inferior thyroid.
Did I? I don't remember.
But I
Really?
thought that ran between the internal and external jugular.
Okay, my mistake.
Okay.
So this one is the transverse scapular,
Okay.
and this one right here is the internal jugular. And this
So-
one here is the external jugular.
Is there no inferior thyroid vein?
The inferior thyroid vein is number 5, and it's almost impossible to see all the time
Okay.
because it's so tiny that it doesn't ever get really well injected.
Okay.
One time we had it, but I haven't seen any this semester. One thing I forgot to tell you guys about was the azygous vein, which is back here. Very easy to test on, and I love it so much. This guy right here. It is the remnants of the posterior cardinal vein. So that's a homology question for you, for anyone that wants to know it. Am I missing anything? I don't. Oh, yes, of course. Sternal vein, yeah, this one. That's the sternal, but I did also forget some of the arteries that are jammed up in there. Number 8 and 9, vertebral and costocervical. For these ones, they're next to the subclavian. What I'm petting at right here is the internal mammillary. But underneath all this, you find this subclavian. And the subclavian has 2 things coming off of it below what you'd expect. Let's see if I can find it. There it is. Okay. Okay, this one right here, this one is running back towards the vertebra. That's the vertebral. And this one is moving up towards the head. That's the costocervical. Definitely tough to find. You have to move your subclavian back a little.
But in general, for the exam, I'm talking with Christina. In the book, gave you like the vertebral as first and then costocervical is second, but that's not always the case. Okay?
Yeah, you have to look at where it's going.
But if it's going toward the head, then it's the costocervical. If it's going all the way back, then it's the vertebral.
Yeah.
But I think we agree that if we do it, we'll use an animal that has in this order.
Okay, good. So that's all the blood vessels of the upper body and all the blood vessels of the upper body and all the organs of the cat. So let's go on to the lower body while we still have 5 minutes. We're going to do this lightning fast. This is the posterior vena cava. This is the renal vein. Up here, we're going to do the veins. We have the iliolumbar vein. I forgot the adrenal lumbar, which is this guy. Right here. Right next to the adrenal gland, which I also forgot. The adrenal gland is a little bean that's in this area. Right, for the veins, we have common iliac, comes all the way back down to here. This one is internal iliac. From here to here, you have external iliac. And coming out down to the legs, you have the femoral from here to here. Then it becomes the popliteal up here, and the greater saphenous coming around here. Arteries. There's a lot of them. And moving up in here, we have the dorsal aorta on the lower part of the body. This one right here is the celiac. And this one back here, that one's the superior mesenteric. So the celiac has 3 coming off of it. The jammed up in there, really hard to see for some reason, making my life hell. This one moving up towards the liver is the hepatic. This one moving up towards the stomach is the gastric. And this 2 right up here, it splits apart into 2, is the splenic. So HGS, hugs, hepatic, gastric, and splenic. So we have the superior mesenteric here. We move down here. We have the inferior mesenteric right here. We, of course, have the genital artery, and the genital vein on this side comes alongside the ureter right down here. And there's the renal artery, and the adrenal lumbar artery. Okay, moving on from there, we have these ones. This is the iliolumbar, of course. We have the external iliac right here, the internal iliac right here, and the caudal artery and vein right down here. Of course, the external iliac becomes the femoral down here, which of course becomes the popliteal and the greater saphenous on the leg. Okay, last one, the colics. We don't have to know the colics, do we? Okay, so well, you should know the intestinal. We should know a few things up here. So we have the superior mesenteric right here. It comes up here into the giant mess, which is your intestinals. So up here you have the intestinal, the mesenterics running to the intestinals at the end here. So all of these are mesenterics, and at the end you have the intestinals. Same thing goes for the veins. Now this big old vein right here, this is your hepatic portal vein. There's a branch off of it that comes onto the pancreas called the posterior pancreaticoduodenal. It's this guy right here. And that's all I can remember right now. Woo!